They want you to never find out, because once you do, nothing will seem real anymore. For a long time, I lived believing that my financial mistakes were just that, mistakes. A red line on my account, a maxed out credit card, a purchase I shouldn't have made. But one day, I realized they weren't just numbers. They were marks. Invisible scars that I carried every single day, and that, somehow, continued to decide for me, without me realizing it. It's strange, isn't it? We think we learn from pain, but, deep down, we only learn to survive it. And surviving isn't the same as growing. And then I started thinking, why is it so easy to repeat the same mistakes? Why, even after we've been wrong, do we end up back in the same hole, as if there were a force pulling us there? I don't know if you've ever felt this, but it's almost as if our minds hold onto the wrong memories. As if I remembered the momentary pleasure of spending more than the frustration of having nothing later. And that's where what I call elephant memory comes in, because they say the elephant never forgets. And I kept asking myself, what if we learned to never forget our financial mistakes? Not in a bitter way, but in a way so clear, so vivid, that each wrong decision became a kind of vaccine against the next disaster. But there's a problem. Most people don't want to look at their mistakes. They want to erase them, forget them, pretend they never happened. And that's exactly why they remain trapped. Trapped in a cycle that repeats, and repeats, and repeats. I've experienced this myself. There was a time when I was so deep in debt, my paycheck wouldn't even last 3 days. It was like the money was sand slipping through my fingers. And the worst part? I couldn't even remember where it had gone. It was like waking up from a blackout, looking at an empty account and thinking, but what do you mean? Until one day, something happened that changed everything. I was rummaging through an old drawer and found a printed bank statement. You know that yellowed paper with faded letters? It was from years ago, and there was the exact record of one of the worst months of my financial life. Every line, every purchase, it was like a slap in the face. I remembered it back then, but I'd never seen it so raw, so explicit. And in that moment, I felt something I'd never felt before. It was shame, but it was also clarity. And I thought, if I could carry this feeling with me every day, I would never repeat that mistake again. That's when it hit me. We don't need to forget. We need to remember, but remember it the right way. Because there's a detail no one tells you. Forgetting a mistake is giving it permission to come back. And the faster you forget, the faster it comes back, with interest. But here's what gave me goosebumps. I discovered there's a way to train your mind to never fall into the same trap again. And it's not about discipline. It's not about spreadsheets. It's about something much deeper and much more dangerous. And if you don't understand this, the system will continue to use your own mind against you. I'll tell you exactly how it works. But first, you need to understand why the biggest trap isn't in your pocket. It's in your memory. Have you ever noticed that whenever we think of money, the first image that comes to mind, isn't it money? Sometimes, it's that heavy silence in the kitchen when the electricity bill arrives and no one says anything. Or the suffocating heat of a crowded bus at the end of the day, when you look at your phone and see that your balance is lower than it should be. Or that heavy feeling in your chest when you tell someone, I can't afford it now, trying to smile, but knowing that smile hides nothing. It's funny, or maybe it isn't, because money is never just money. It's smell, sound, temperature, a look. It's the dry sound of the machine declining your card at the grocery store checkout. It's the silent humiliation of having to return a product in front of strangers. It's the quick glance you give the salesperson, as if to say it's the bank's problem, even though you know the problem is you. And you know what's worse? You start to get used to it. That feeling that once burned inside you starts to feel lukewarm. And then you repeat the mistake, because, without realizing it, you've trained your mind to think everything's fine. But it's not. Maybe you've experienced this scene. At the end of the month, you open your banking app. Your phone feels hot in your hand, as if it were burning. Your finger hesitates before touching the screen, and when it does, the number that appears seems like a bad joke. At that moment, the silence around you is almost noisy. You hear the distant hum of the street, the neighbor dragging a chair, a dog barking, but everything seems muffled. Because in your head, there's only one question. How did I let this happen again? And then, as if by reflex, you start to justify yourself. Oh, but there was that unexpected expense. Oh, but my salary didn't go up. And, without realizing it, you're telling yourself the same story you told last month, and the month before, and the month before. It's like looking in a mirror that always shows the same version of you. Same tired expression, same slumped shoulders, same sigh. And deep down, you know, it's not bad luck. It's not the world. It's a pattern. and the pattern only changes when you stop running from what hurts the most to remember. I remember exactly the moment something broke. It wasn't a scream. It wasn't a dramatic enough. It was silence. A silence so strange it felt heavy. As if, suddenly, all the noise in my mind had stopped. I was staring at the statement, and I swear it was like staring at a foreign body inside me. Every number there was a trace of my choices, and I could no longer say it had been the world. I could no longer blame chance. It was as if I had found proof of a crime, and the criminal was myself. And in that moment, something paradoxical happened. I felt shame, but I also felt a strange kind of freedom. Because when you stop lying to yourself, it hurts. But that pain also makes space. It was as if an animal had awakened inside me. It wasn't a calm animal. It was something big, heavy, and hungry. A hunger to never go through that again. A fury against every excuse I'd ever made. I realized that my financial life hadn't been built by occasional bad decisions. It had been sculpted day after day by small moments of self-deception. That just this once. That I deserve it. That I'll figure it out later. And suddenly, the whole logic reversed in my head. It wasn't that I lacked discipline. It was that I had too much discipline to keep making the same mistake. I was practicing, with almost military precision, the habit of sabotaging myself. This realization was like shattering a glass from the inside. Because, along with the shame, came something I hadn't expected. The certainty that, if I could repeat the mistake so many times, I could also repeat the success. But for that, I would have to do something most people don't have the courage to do. Look at the mistake, every day, until it became impossible to ignore. And that's where what I'm going to show you in a moment comes in. Because there's a method, simple, yet brutal, that turns every financial failure into a kind of mental tattoo. A tattoo that won't let you forget. And when you never forget, you start to decide differently. But if you're not prepared, this tattoo can destroy you before it saves you. And then, I reached the point everyone avoids. That moment when either you change or you go broke. There were no more excuses. There was no more, when I have money left over. There was no more, I'll organize next year. It was now or never. I remember sitting alone in the kitchen. The clock ticked so loudly it seemed to mock me. The air was heavy hot, and suddenly, I realized that my greatest enemy wasn't debt, wasn't low pay, wasn't saving. It was me. It was the guy who looked in the mirror every day and still pretended not to see it. And that's when you realize there is a kind of prison that has no bars. And it's the most dangerous of all, because you hold the key. I could have continued to sit there, feeling sorry for myself. Or you could get up and start acting like someone who, truly, will never fall into the same trap again. But here's a detail that will bother you. When you choose to change, the world doesn't change with you. The temptations continue. The wrong opportunities continue. The invitations to spend continue. The difference is that, now, you'll look at all of this through a new lens. And that lens won't let you forget. I got up from that chair with the strange feeling that either I was going to become someone completely different, or I was going to go back to being exactly the same as before. And therein lies the dilemma no one likes to admit. Change hurts, but not changing destroys. And maybe you're at that exact point right now. The point where, if you continue as you are, a year from now you'll be telling the same story. And maybe, with a much worse ending. What if I told you there was a way to ensure you never go back to that place? A way that seems simple, but requires the courage to look directly at what you fear most. It seems like we're at the end of this story, right? But no, the truth is that the true beginning comes now. Deep down, our memory is like an elephant standing in the middle of the room. Enormous, impossible to ignore, but we pass by it every day, pretending it's not there. And then, one day, the elephant moves. It steps, and you feel the ground shake. And you understand that either you learn to walk with it, or you'll spend your whole life running away, never truly moving. So tell me, will you keep turning your back? Or will you finally face the elephant that lives in your memory? Maybe you don't have the answer right now, and that's okay. But when it comes, I hope you still remember this conversation. Because, deep down, you know you'll come back here. If only to confirm that the elephant is still waiting for you.